Hello, this is GM Hikaru's Yu-Gi-Oh! Lookalike Tombox here. Today, I'm jumping back into the meta, guys, and I'm going to do that by recapping all of the top decks of November 2025, and these are the likely contenders that can take it at YCS Pittsburgh. I'll keep this one short and sweet so you guys can get back into playtesting. Also, at the end, I'll be recapping the current side decking trends from the most recent tops at Tier 2 events. So, make sure you guys hit that like button, hit subscribe, and ding that notification bell. Thank you guys, and let's do this. These are the top decks of November, based off of their Tier 2 and above performance in the recent weeks. So, numbers 1, 2, 3, and 4, these are your meta contenders. Number 5, 6, 7, and 8, these are your rogue contenders that also earned wins and tops. So you cannot underestimate these decks, as you can get heavily punished if you don't understand their lines and their choke points. In the top representation spot, there's going to be, of course, Mitsurugi Yummy, Silver Cord, Mitsurugi, anything to do with those particular archetypes. It's going to be in the top spot here, as you know, one copy of Habakiri is extremely nasty. Shout out to Lucas Sacco for this particular topping deck list, and you can see it's a 40 card build. It's just so strong being able to use cards like Ami no Murakumo and Habakiri. Habakiri being able to generate from Habakiri into Zombie Vampire into trying to fetch into your Yummy engine. If you get lucky into a Cupsy, man, you're just so far ahead just playing that particular combo that a lot of times people can't really catch up. And even if you don't open with your Mitsurugi side, if you get lucky, well, you don't have to get lucky. You just have to open all the way into a Herald of the Arclight. And Arclight will be able to help you add one of your rituals. And once you get to the ritual, when you get the turn coming back, because you survived, your opponent is feeling the full force of the Yummy and the Mitsurugi side. This is a very resilient deck, especially with the post-ban of D-Barrier, where you don't get half your engine shut down. It is just ridiculously strong. And now you're not getting your turn skip by like Protos, D-Barrier, or any of those floodgates. And also shoutouts to Hunter Branch. If you don't want to play the Mitsurugi, then you can throw the full hand trap throttle onto your opponent, because you got your Fualos, Ash, Droll, Bell, DD Crow, and Purge. Now be careful with that Purge though, because it does lock you out from some of these effects if you activate it from your hand first. So it could screw over your Ash, it could screw over your DD Crow. Just be a little bit careful when activating that Purge, okay? But you can see it is still a very strong option, and this is also another topping build. In the number 2 representation, a strong counter option to Yummy is going to be branded Draco Tale or Draco Tale. That particular package is already very strong against Yummy, as it makes it very difficult for them to build their board. They require their summon. If their board is constantly collapsing due to removal, then branded Draco Tale might have them on the road. So this deck here is built by Danilo Siracusa. This is another top build among recent regionals, and this highlights why it's so strong. And they also have additional ways to kind of deal with particular problems from the Fallen the Virtuous. It's so strong being able to play the branded package the way that it is now. And I think there's going to be more evolution to it since the structure deck is so new. I mean, you could also be playing pure Draco Tale, but I think usually the builds that we see now are hybrid with branded inside. And for K9s, we have K9 Crystron, K9 Silver Cord, and even pure K9. The deck is extremely powerful. I'm going to provide you guys with 2 deck lists, a pure version, and of course the one that you see right now, which is the K9 Crystron by Tim Bear, recent top. Congratulations. The biggest change from the ban list, of course, they lost the artifact Molnir, but it seems to be replaced by a spell canceller. As most sideboard options now are based off of spell cards to break your board, that completely forces your opponent to play into your board, which is extremely beneficial. It also kind of force other players to shift into a board breaker like evenly matched. Now, what makes this so popular? Well, number 1, Crystron cards can bridge into K9 cards and vice versa through the use of River Stormer versus Ripper. Because of these particular rank 5s that are super generic, you can just dig into either, and you have options to go into Cyber Dragon Infinity, build your entire Crystron board, have the Crystron cards act as additional ways to disrupt your opponent. And yeah, it's just an overall very strong option. But one thing that cannot be understated is got to be Neroy's hand check, because once you get that hand check, it's a custom field for you. It is custom tailored to deal with your entire hand. And if they see that you have multiple board breakers and they can't establish a board without committing too many resources, they just won't commit that many resources and focus more on the survivability. And it doesn't mean that you get to take an easy game for free. Most people will opt to negate the effect of Neroy just to keep the hand private. But once Neroy resolves, half the time, most people are going to be playing an uphill battle just from that particular play alone. And with the recent banning of the D-Barrier, now the Xyz focus on the deck can really shine. And if you're wondering how do they summon out the spell canceller if they can't use Jokul and if they burn their normal on the Noroi, quite simply, well, the spell canceller, if it is already in your hand, you can quite easily just use Armored Lyle to summon it back onto the field. Yes, it is negated, but then you would overlay it with Quinquiri and then resummon it back onto the field. And therefore, the effect will be fully intact. So that's one way of doing it. And I promised you guys that I would share you guys my pure K9 build for Modern. This is my pure K9 build for Modern. For a YCS level event, I would cut the Cosmo Dark Lady because it does provide me with a negate and it's really good against Yummy because it really locks them out of just completely just tagging out their cards for free, getting that free synchro. It's really nice to have that monster negate effect. I needed the consistency, so this is what I currently play. And things I guess I should mention, yes, I'm playing one copy of Hound for survivability. Just in case my opponent goes for a full board wipe and I need something to survive the entire turn, it's just there to just eat most of the plays. The River Stormer, the Werewolf, the Hound, Valen all have 25, which is why I opted to play a copy of Dragon's Mind. In fact, I can switch it for 3 copies of Dragon's Mind, but recently I found out that Mind Crush has been a pretty solid option, and it probably deserves its own spreadsheet of what to call in each matchup. Especially against Mitsurugi Yummy, when they activate the ritual and they say summon from deck, you just call Habakiri, and all of a sudden they neg so hard. They lost the Habakiri or Habakiris if they have multiple copies, and then it just gets dropped into the graveyard. Another thing that you can do to them is call the ritual when they add it into hand, and all of a sudden they don't have a play because they burned it, and that completely shuts off one entire line that you don't have to worry about. Yeah, there's just many things that you can hit, but once you get that hand check with Noroi, you can custom call stuff like Dark Ruler No More that could break your board, and if they have multiple copies, that takes out that particular risk. But if you want to have multiple counter traps, then Dragon Mind is probably your best bet because of the amount of monsters that are default at 25. One of the best ways is to actually search out the Regulus, equip it with the Noroi, and set a Dragon's Mind, leaving the River Stormer on board. They think it's useless, but once you counter trap them with it, and then once you're done counter trapping them with it, then you can play the Release Restraint and convert it into additional negation or board popping. And that's how you maximize the resources in pure K9. It's a very active deck. You have to actively choose when to activate stuff. But that's my rundown for K9, all right? So I said I was going to give it to you guys. I'm giving it to you guys right here. And at number 4, the last deck that most people would consider as a part of the meta, I would say is Maliss Ignister. This is the banished deck of the format, as it still plays D-Shifter. It can play out cards like D-Fissure and just benefits off of banishing in general. But it kind of fell under the radar for a little bit, and most people did not dedicate any big sides towards it, like Artifact Lancia, because they didn't have space for it. But in the German Open, it really highlighted that, hey, this deck is insanely powerful. It's very, very popular. You're likely going to see a lot of people choosing to play it. But with the banning of D-Barrier, that opens up the 3 side deck slots that most people have shoved in Lancias for. So you can see people are respecting this deck a lot more now. One of the scariest things about this deck, well, number 1, it plays with Banish, and it counters. It technically, if it goes first, it can hard counter K9, it can hard counter like Branded or Draco Tale, because every single deck from Justice Hunter requires a graveyard. It's their sub-engine that kind of bypasses it on their own, but overall, the deck is already very strong on its own. It is proven to be one of the top decks in the previous format and still showing success now. And this shout outs to Gabo Huart with this particular deck list, also showing like, hey, you can side deck cards like D-Fissure to stun out people from hand trapping you as well. So, you know, shout outs to this particular deck, and it's nice to see the variety kind of come back rather than just people floodgating each other to death. And on to number 5, we're into the rogue decks now, and if you aren't prepared for these matchups, they will put you at a lower table. Number 5, we have Jurrac Fire King, and this is by Ronald Gonzalo Sergio Guerrera. This particular deck not only topped the event, it won the event, okay, that it participated in this particular deck list. One thing you just have to know about this deck is that it's capable of blowing up your entire field on your turn. It has essentially the hand trap version of Torrential Tribute. It is wild. So if you commit poorly onto this field, you will lose. And that's why it has like a pretty decent matchup against Yummy. When Yummy is still building their board, imagine getting hit by a Dark Hole, or get hit by a Raigeki. It's very rough when you get hit in those particular positions. Not to mention it has negates from like Arvada. It has the destruction capability of the Kirans and the resilience from the Garunics. It's got all of those things going for it, plus the dinosaur package. And what does the dinosaur package do if you do synchro into the Estero? it negates inherent summons, right? It negates would-be summons, things that don't start a chain, and all it has to do is banish 2 dinosaurs. It's so easy, and it being a pure fire deck, it has absolute control. It's a control-based deck with the fire package. You special summon, all of a sudden, Promethean Princess now becomes your problem. It has all of those old features when we played Snake Eye, all right? So it is there. It is a scary deck. And definitely don't underestimate it, especially that board nuke. At deck number 6, we have Memento. This particular deck list is by Jacob Charlin with a recent top, but previously in YCS Houston, of course, the deck that took it was Memento. I don't think anything truly changed here. I think it's still all the same in terms of how to counter it. Number 1, if you're going to be stopping them from building a board, it's going to be number 1, Tatsuno Hogoshigo. Prevent that card from resolving ever. Okay, you can blow it up if you want, as long as they don't load their graveyard with Gactic and Sleepy. If they load their graveyard with Gactic and Sleepy, then you probably want to stop the Gactic from adding the Sleepy, because once they get the Sleepy, they get the whole Fusion Play loads up, Creation King comes up, Creation King loads another 3 names in the graveyard, and all of a sudden, you realize that the graveyard is their massive amounts of resources. And if you do stop them from Tatsuno Hogoshigoing, their next possible follow-up play is to go into the Goblin. And once they get into Memento Goblin to kind of get their follow-up, it's a little bit more problematic once you get to there, because it's still getting like essentially a double add. But those are the essential pain points. Now, if they're going to be playing into your board, typically you can get quite easily OTK because of Akihiron, because Akihiron is capable of enabling the level 9s and above to attack directly, and that's going to be 5,000 and 3,000, and essentially you're just going to get one shot and OTK'd through your entire board. They're just going to crack your back row and then OTK you. So that's one of the effects that you should aim to negate if you think you're going to get OTK'd and you have nothing to stop it. So yeah, Akihiron, one of the cards that you should be stopping if you want to block an OTK. But yeah, that's essentially Memento in a nutshell. At number 7, we have Despia branded. This particular deck list is by Pack and is likely going to be a very popular choice among players. Now, branded was already a very popular deck, and with the recent addition of Fallen and the Virtuous giving you additional ways to play your deck, one of the scarier things about this deck now is, of course, that new card, the Fallen and the Virtuous, being able to pop a card non-target, and not only does it have the capacity to do that, it also triggers Quem to bring back Fallen of Albaz, giving you that quick fusion play. Essentially, it's a super poly play against your opponent by popping off some of the more problematic things on the field. So this is Pack's particular build. He explains it very thoroughly in his video, so I highly recommend you guys check it out. And there's also the Edo lock in here, which is one of the few floodgating locks that's still available. Man, I don't know what's up with Konami creating like monsters that can summon onto the opponent's side of the field. I mean, that's the biggest problem with like Quinqueria as well. It's the ability to summon onto the opponent's side. It's still here, but you don't have to fully worry about it as long as you have cards like Ghost Bell. Pack fully explains why his entire side deck is made up of hand traps, because he does believe the main deck is more than capable of going first, and it doesn't really need to worry too much because it has also full on board breaking capacity just with the deck alone. So, you know, hats off to him for building a deck that seems to be very fun to play, and like I think this deck is capable of competing at, you know, the current highest level of the meta. At number 8, we have Lunalights. This deck list is by Felipe Santa Maria Rodriguez, winning the event that participated in. Overall, this is a Towers as deck. Number 1, game 1, trying to get into Liger Dancer as soon as possible and secure the tower to win the entire game. And 9 times out of 10, most people do not have an out for the towers on game 1 anyway. They require siding options to prevent it from coming out. But if you're going to be playing against Lunalights, number 1, you're going to need Droll and Logbird. If you can Droll them at the very beginning, it makes it very difficult for them to play. Number 2, if you can prevent them from getting out their Liger Dancer by kind of stunning them out of their graveyard. This is where Lancia also kind of comes in, because if you can hit them with a Lancia, it hurts them a lot because it prevents the heavy polymerization from going off, and a lot of people kind of accounted for that because D-Barrier is now gone, making it so that one of the best options to stop them, which was D-Barrier, that's no longer an option. But Artifact Lancia technically is the next best thing that also stuns out a lot of the potential cards they activate in the graveyard, from the Perfume, preventing them from banishing with heavy poly, and preventing from Lunalight Wolf from banishing. So it just really minimizes the board that they're capable of doing. So that's also like a very key point. But if you want to stop this deck, yes, you can try to aim to break the deck, but prevention is usually better than aiming to break it. But that's Lunalights. Let's take a look at some of these sideboard trends right now. So after reviewing like 30 plus top 8s, these are the most common side cores that we're seeing. So Ash, Bell, and Droll are 50% of them have them inside, so people are actually choosing not to main deck these cards. And then we're seeing people replacing like the Dimensional Barrier with like Artifact Lancey and Malcharming Meows. They're respecting more and more of Maliss, so they're countering with these cards. And a lot of the choices here for people siding is to deal with Draco Tale, and most of the board breaking is to deal with the Yummy base boards because they don't want the response to deal with the Mitsurugi stuff as well. So you're seeing Dark Wheeler, Book of Eclipse, Super Poly, they're in the main, they're in the sides, and if you see the board breakers in the main, you're going to see the hand traps in the side. But one thing that most people do have in their main deck, Forbidden Droplet. I think 90% of the decks I've reviewed have Droplet in the main, so this is going to be one of the staples of the current format. As for this stuff going first, sideboard cards for trap cards, not as common. 50% of people do have a Solemn Judgment in there just to secure game, but if anyone chose to play a Floodgate, it has to be anti-spell fragrance. And we haven't actually been seeing people playing Grisaille Prison yet to replace the D barrier. Maybe we'll see more of it if it is successful in the upcoming YCS, but these are the current side trends. So if you have these, you can mix and match it, and then you can fill the rest with whatever that you feel comfortable with. That's all I got for this video, guys. I hope you guys all got caught up with what's going on with the current format. Good luck to you all at Pittsburgh. Maybe you guys will find a new tech. If you guys have any additional techs, leave it down in the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts about it. And if I missed anything, or if there's anything that needs to be corrected, leave it down in the comment section. You know, I'd love to improve as well. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one.